Okay, this is video help on homework number 2. And on homework number 2, there's 3 problems on the back that are somewhat challenging. They're asking you to find the maximum and minimum altitude of 3 stars. One is named Rigel, the other one is Algol, and the other one is Dubhe. So what you'll need to do is find the coordinates of those 3 stars, and perhaps you can write them right above these blanks that are looking for maximum and minimum altitude. You'll notice over here to the left-hand side, I'm giving you some space to make a sketch, and you'll want to make a sketch that looks like this, a sky dome. And you'll have yourself down here in Nacogdoches, and the altitude of the north celestial pole is 32 degrees above the horizon. So you'll have the celestial meridian starting at the north horizon point, going through the north celestial pole, and then going to the zenith, and then crossing the celestial equator right there, and then down to the south horizon point. Now, if a star is on or exactly at the north celestial pole, its declination is 90 degrees, and its altitude is 32 degrees. That's the angle above the horizon. Now, if you're over on the celestial equator, right here, the declination is, of course, 0, because you're on the celestial equator. Now, if you look at the geometry relative to the person in the center, you find that this is 32 degrees right here, and then therefore this angle, if a star is directly on the celestial equator, then that angle of that star above the horizon is 58 degrees. You can also reason that if this is 0 for declination, and this right here is 90, that the angle between there and there is 32, which means the declination of the star directly overhead is 32 degrees. Of course, the altitude of that star is 90 degrees. So let's go back to those 3 stars. Let me not talk about those 3 stars in particular, but just a general star. Suppose we have a star that has a declination of 80 degrees, and we're looking for the maximum and minimum altitude. If the star has a declination of 80 degrees, that means that it is always 10 degrees away from the north celestial pole. See, here we got 90. There's 80. So if it has a declination of 80 degrees, it's always 10 degrees away. That means that it's either there or there. Those 2 points, get a little bit closer here to the actual spot. Those 2 spots right there for the maximum and minimum altitude. So you have a star being circumpolar. This would be a star that would never set. So the maximum altitude, well, it has a declination of 80 degrees right here, but its declination is also 80 degrees right there. Star's declination doesn't change, but its altitude is changing. So it reaches a maximum altitude when it crosses the meridian up here, and a minimum when it crosses down here. So since it's always 10 degrees away from the north celestial pole, then all you got to do is say 10 degrees between those 2 points. If this altitude is 32, then the minimum altitude is 22 degrees. Okay? And then if you have the star getting a maximum altitude, it's going to be when it crosses the meridian up here. And so then you take the 10 degrees plus 32, and you find that the maximum altitude is 42 degrees. So only circumpolar stars really have maximum and minimum altitudes like we see here. If the declination of a star instead is such that it's not circumpolar, for example a declination of minus 10 degrees, then the star actually appears over here in the southern hemisphere. So a star on the celestial equator again would have a declination of 0, so a star would be 10 degrees below that when it reached its maximum altitude, right there. So a star would actually kind of travel parallel to the celestial equator. And that, for that reason, you can actually say that the minimum altitude is 0 degrees. Now, of course, it goes below the horizon, but let's not give negative altitudes for this one. Let's just say the altitude is going to be 0 degrees because it goes below the horizon. Now, if the declination is minus 10, you can see that this star is 10 degrees below where this star on the celestial equator was. Therefore, the maximum altitude is 48 degrees. All right, so use those examples to work the other problems on the back of homework number 2.